Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Holistic Conversations with Vicky and Bronny. We really appreciate you joining us.
This podcast is all about how you can learn to live well, be healthy, have gorgeous skin inside and out, and really thrive as you get older.
By sharing our knowledge through real life experiences in our holistic beauty practices using natural therapies as well as high-tech science know-how, we will impart behind the scenes how-tos on how you get the most out of your day to live with vitality. Hello there, this is Aroma Spa Bronny. I'm here with Vicky Jameson.
Hi.
And we're starting a podcast about conversations about holistic living. So first of all, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself, and then Vicky will do the same. So if you're a first-time listener and you don't know us at all, you will understand a little bit about where we come from. So basically, Vicky and I met, probably almost 30 years ago, and we met at Beauty Therapy College, and we've gone through the same kind of course as in holistic beauty therapy, aromatherapy, and skin nutrition. So I started that way in beauty therapy, and then I kind of progressed into aromatherapy from a personal situation where myself and my mum were really bad asthmatics. And I started dabbling in aromatherapy in my clinic, and I realised that I could take my clients on another level of relaxation, and I was also healing their skin kind of without knowing it. And so I thought, wow, this is so cool. I'll go back and study it and get myself and my mum off our inhalers because we were really steroid dependent. And unfortunately, before I qualified, my mum had a fatal asthma attack. So you can imagine how life-changing that is. And it made me realise that, you know, we put all this trust into orthodox medicine and it lets us down. And in her case, basically what I took years of research and kind of figuring out was that her lungs were relying on these steroids. So they're basically a muscle and they atrophied. So when something went wrong, her lungs collapsed and her heart stopped. And so as my tribute to her over the years, which was no mean feat, as you can imagine, I weaned myself off my asthma inhalers, and I made my first remedy, which is still one of my best ones now and very close to my heart, which is called Breathe and Relieve. And yeah, so that kind of made me realise right back then in my 20s that our health is what we make it, and don't rely on what and this is not putting down, you know, orthodox medicine by any means, but it's kind of like, don't rely on your doctor keeping you well. You've got to actually create yourself a holistic lifestyle, and when things do go wrong, you know what's going, you know, you kind of got plan B, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I think is that kind of all I need to say, Vicky? Is that kind of covered?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I've known you for such a long time and we've been on such a similar journey, but at different kind of levels, if you like. Hearing your story just reminds me of, you know, why you start and why you keep going in therapy and in your clinic. And then you actually changed a little bit and evolved, I guess, to making your own skincare. And so what kind of led you to that?
Yeah, well, I guess I had been a beauty therapist where our prime concern is kind of looking after the skin. I made remedies, like I was saying, like my Breathe and Relieve was my first one for clients, and I did notice their skin changing, but I didn't really have that much confidence to go, oh, here's my skincare range, because I was kind of making kind of these wonderful balms, if you like, out of these beautiful vegetable oils, but I had no idea how to make it into a cream or how I could sell that to a client to take home and that it was beautiful to use. It was more kind of how, as an aromatherapist, you would mix a base for an oil, you know, like for a massage.
So more therapeutic rather than cosmetic.
So it wasn't necessarily, even though it wouldn't harm the skin, it wasn't like a beautiful emollient that you could put on the skin. And then so I kind of naively thought that as a beauty therapist and an aromatherapist that I could mix the two. But it took me many years to realize that they're miles apart. Like most beauty therapists, unless you're a holistic beauty therapist, don't really give a shite about whether it's natural. They just want instant results for their client's skin. And the public back then, I mean, because we're talking the 90s, the public back then didn't know that there are a lot of skincare brands out there that can contain every chemical under the sun. And so to make a holistic cream, if you like, is so much different than making a chemical concoction or say like a chemical base with skin ingredients in it. So I guess what happened is how I eventually got to the stage where I am now as making my own range was I was lucky enough to be contacted from someone that knew that I knew skin well and knew that I knew aromatherapy well. And they said, oh, look, I've got this skincare range and something happened to her formulator. Can you formulate my skincare range? And you know what I said? Sure. Yeah. I'll figure it out. And so it was actually quite exciting to me, but it was really, really difficult. So I was thrown on the deep end, and she just sent me this money, and I went out and I just bought all this ingredients. And can I swear on this thing? I went, oh, what the F and hell am I doing? And I started experimenting, and I made all these concoctions.
I could just see you in the kitchen making all these, using test tubes and fuming bits of things coming out.
It was basically like that. It was kind of like me and my, what do you call it, a witchy poo cauldron, which by the way, my ex-husband said I was like a while back. And, so, but the weird thing was, what happened in that, even though the first batches were disasters, because with cosmetic chemistry, without going on to it too much, but it can be out by 0.5% and it will just fall apart. But what it made me realize was by having this affinity with the skin, and I'm a very much a tactile person, that I could naturally figure out other stuff just by the feel. And which actually sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. I don't really know how I did it, but then I realized that because I could make a cream and it looked really good, and then all of a sudden it fall apart, and I've actually wasted thousands of dollars. I thought, oh my God, I better go and work this out. So I went back and learnt cosmetic chemistry and what to do if something goes apart, falls apart, or if it's not working. And as I say, all the stuff that I was doing, this was many, many weeks going on and going, yeah, the cream's nearly ready. I'm thinking, oh my God. I had fluked upon it. So what I'm trying to say is what I was then taught through cosmetic chemistry was I already had worked out.
So that had just validated that you were actually on the right track and going by your instincts, because you were so tactile and knew what it should feel like, you could actually get it right.
Yeah. And then I was kind of like I knew what the skin needed. So I worked backwards. And because she had said, this is what's in my cream, and now it's kind of like giving you all the ingredients to make a cake, but you've got no idea what you've got to do with those ingredients. And so because I learned the hardest way possible, I just kind of, when I got it.
Yeah.
And I remember, like having to teach other people, and they were like, how do you do that? And I'm like, how do I do what? And I was like, oh, okay, yes. Oh, okay. They want to know how I'm making this cream. I better dissect it and work out my steps. But yeah, so I fluked upon it basically.
Fell into it. So it just goes to show what a brilliant mind you actually have. And sometimes we have our own genius and we don't even realize it. So that's the whole key of the crux of the situation. So that's amazing.
Yeah. So there I go. There you go. And cool. What about you? What's your story?
So, so my name is Vicky Jameson, and I have had my own beauty salon. Once I had met Bronwyn and studied beauty, which initially when I was 25 at the time and thought, oh, you know what, I'm not into all this pretty makeup-y kind of stuff. I don't know what they learn at beauty school, but I'm not into that. But I was into how the body worked. And I thought, the body's an amazing machine. I want to do more body work. And I looked at the ad for beauty therapy and it said massage. And at the time I wanted to be a physiotherapist. But I thought I don't want to go back to uni for 5 years. So let's try this course and see how it goes. So, you know, when I say try this course, it was $12,000. So it was a big jump in the leap of faith, if you like. And because there is so much body, you know, anatomy and physiology in it, I just thought I am in the right place. So when I qualified, I worked straight away. And then about 3 years later, I started my own business, and which was called Better Body Beauty Sanctuary. So I have literally kept the same name. There's been a few tweaks at the end. And my whole philosophy has been on holistic beauty therapy, which I know is a thing now, but back again, as Bronwyn says, back in the 90s, it wasn't. It was very chemical, and anti-aging was very... let's give us the best results in the shortest possible time. Beauty therapy was all about ship them in, ship them out numbers kind of thing, not the human factor that we're all coming for a facial to actually chill out from the world. So my focus then became, how do I help all these clients that I had that needed to de-stress, because they'd come in frazzled and then they go out relaxed. But you could see that it would go in like about 5 minutes. So as much as you're working on the skin, and I absolutely love figuring out stuff with the skin. So I understand that whole process of what should be happening. And then if things aren't happening in the way that it should from a function perspective, what are the contributing factors? So that's how my brain works. And the skin for me is a process of what we're putting on, what goes in, so how things get in, and then also our internal, so our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, how we feel, as well as the physical, you know, nourishing and vitamins and nutrients basically that we do, and water and sleep and all those kind of things have such a massive effect on our skin and how it looks. And then how it looks has an effect on how we feel about ourselves. So that became kind of the focus of my salon back in the day. And I went back and studied aromatherapy like Bronwyn. So that's 4 years back at college as I was working. And through that, I did a lot of Eastern modalities like Chinese medicine, kinesiology, a lot of herbal tinctures. So I kind of learned a lot of other cultures and the way that they integrate their beliefs and how they live basically into how they treat the human body. So from that mind, body, spirit perspective. And so I thought, well, why can't we do this in Western world? was my thought process. So I started incorporating a whole lot of things. And I think this kind of brings us to where we are today with Bronwyn and I, is we still have that philosophy where, you know what, there's a lot of things in traditional Eastern philosophies that can work so beautifully with the Western culture. And a lot of the time we need to listen in to ourselves. So go with your gut feeling, listen to your intuition, do what feels right. So I think we've lost touch. And you mentioned this, Bronwyn, about, you know, when you had your asthma and you got yourself off the inhalers, don't be reliant on one type. So Western medicine's one type of medicine, and there's nothing, we absolutely need it. It's amazing. But also it's our responsibility as human beings to know our own body, know what it should feel like and what feeling good feels like, having energy feels like, so that we can be, our body's actually primed to be at its best. So we've just got to look after it and feed it all the tools that it needs to stay primed. So, of course, that means, drinking so much water a day, getting so much sleep in a day, moving our bodies. Otherwise, if you don't, use it, you lose it. So all those basics, I call it, and then bringing in other things to optimize, like your essential oils and, pressure points or different movements, shiatsu and acupressure and herbs and crystals because of vibrational energy. So kind of all those things integrated into how I now work. And obviously being over 50 now, some of those things that impact our life and make things typically seem a little harder sometimes, like hormones and stress. Yes, they impact our skin, but it's really about how our body metabolizes everything and how we kind of feel on the outside.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess why we want to do this podcast is kind of to link our knowledge, and we thought that we'd do some different subjects every week, and people could probably ask us questions and contribute to our topics every week. But we thought we're probably going to run out of time today, but our first podcast we could talk about our own personal daily and weekly regimes, because it's all very well. I don't know if you're the same, Vicky, but when a client, I was talking to someone about this the other day, when a client, the old time beauty therapy, client comes to see you about facial and you do a consultation on them, and there's a question like, is your diet balanced? Because you haven't got time to go into their diet, and they'll tick yes. And then quite often you might ask them a few questions, but you've really got no idea. We've got an idea, but we're assuming they know what we mean by balanced.
Yes.
And so I thought maybe we could cover, when we talk about our regimes, we'll cover what we kind of eat daily and give people a bit of an idea on what we call balanced.
Yeah, and I think it's handy to also go into tips like, one of the other questions I always ask a new client is, how much water do you drink a day? You know what the standard reply is? Not enough. Every single person, they don't tell me the amount, they go not enough. So we're aware that we don't drink enough, and I would probably say I don't drink enough either. But at least, my aim is 2 litres a day. And how do I do that? So I actually do have a process or a plan, so that I know that if I'm nowhere near my plan by 3:00 in the afternoon, I better get a hurry on. And the reason is I feel crap the next day if I haven't drunk enough.
Yeah, same. And things like, it always bemuses me, and I don't mean this to come across negatively, but how little people know. And when I say, well, what do you mean you're constipated? For how long? Or, of course, that's going to show on your face. Or, well, how much water do you drink? Or how much alcohol do you drink? Or what's your nutrients? What's your daily nutrients? And they've got no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the constipation one's a classic. People go, oh, so do you, go to the bathroom regularly? Because it's really key to evacuate. And they'll say, oh, maybe every third day. I'm like, what, every third day?
Third day? What the hell?
I know. It's like, oh, is that not normal? No, you should be going like up to 3 times a day, every time you eat. Oh, so things like that make a big difference. Yes, to your skin, but clearly to function.
That alone is like will be probably a key subject, because it just makes sense that we're not made to carry around those toxins, and if they're just sitting in our bowel dormant, isn't it just logical that that's going to not only come through our skin, but it's just basically we're going to feel like shit.
Exactly. well, actually in Chinese medicine, they have like puns for everything, it seems. And your colon area, which you can see on your face, is your, that forehead area. If you can get like bits and, pimples and things like that, breakout that doesn't kind of come out, that's usually a sign that you're constipated. And emotionally, you can feel shitty about stuff constantly. So there's kind of always a bit of a correlation.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that more later, but holistically, yes, that is just, which back in our day, it kind of seemed a bit like woo woo, whereas now, the Orthodox medicine will have this amazing breakthrough that, apparently, if you're feeling depressed, you should go and sit with nature. Well, who would have known that? But, I don't think we even knew it. It's like, what?
So don't wait for science to figure. Don't wait for science to figure things out. That's when it's like, listen to your gut. What do you think would make you feel good right now? Oh, sit under a tree or go for a walk on the beach. Hello.
Yeah, and like the ancient man, the word disease was dis-ease.
Yes,
but we just lost so much of our kind of. What feels good, what feels right. We're so stressed that people just don't know how to feel good anymore. But I mean, one thing, what is happening with the new world is people are realizing there's so much information out there, but they still think, which is a bit annoying, that they can Google something and they're the master of it.
Yes,
but hey,
exactly. At least they're asking the question, and I think that's what we'd like to address in the podcast is coming from, we've each got 30 years each so that's 60 years of experience. When you say it like that, it doesn't sound so great, of combined knowledge, is to go, let's look at people who've done it and are doing it well and ask questions from that so that you can integrate what feels right for you, but from a knowledge perspective, not just from an information perspective. So slightly different.
Yeah. And I think probably through us, if it's not our personal journey or our personal story, we've had a client that experienced that we can touch on so many subjects. So I think it's kind of, I think we need to get it out there. And what we tell people when they come in to see us, quite often they will not know what information they need. And we're sometimes, I don't know if you feel this, but we feel like we're kind of telling them all the stuff for their own good, but they're not realizing or using that as much as they should, if that makes sense. Like what you said about the water. Yeah, I know I should. But if we kind of can start with next week, breaking down our regimes and kind of helping people look at their own regime, and even if they just do one thing each week and just ask us questions, ask us how they can do that, maybe, or
yes,
this is what I'm doing and I don't want to change it, but how can I do this or something, and go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a really good place because some of the smallest changes can have the biggest impact. And then once you're on the road to wellness, and that's what wellness means, is that you can actually increase your wellness exponentially. So it's just up to you what level you want to go to, and we want to be here to help everyone get to where they want to get to. So, but knowing that there is a whole lot more to go.
Oh, all right. So we're going to make this a weekly thing, and we will post this on all our channels. So I'm Aroma Spa or Aroma Spa Bron, or Bron Evans. You could Google that, or Vicky Jameson and Vicky at Better Body.
Yeah. So Facebook on Better Body and Instagram on Vicky Jameson.
Yeah. All right.
And YouTube, Vicky Jameson. So we'll get it all organised. Ask us questions in the meantime. But holistically having conversations about wellness and keeping it real. I think that's the key.
Exactly.
Because don't worry, we still drink wine and eat chocolate.
Oh, Exactly. And that it's all about enjoying life, isn't it?
Exactly. That's it. We don't have to be perfect. No one's ever perfect.
Nah, perfect for them.
Yeah, exactly. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Holistic Conversations with Vicky and Bron on all things living well, being healthy, and having gorgeous skin so you can thrive and live with vitality.
Follow the podcast on this platform if you enjoyed the episode and want to hear more. You'll be notified when we upload new episodes.
If you loved what you heard, share and follow us on our platforms and drop us a note on what you'd like to hear more of. Until next week.